Hello everyone, it's me Alicia. For this video I'm going to show you guys what I made with the dollar bead box, and I'm also going to do a little tutorial for you guys. So do you remember these chandelier findings in the dollar bead box? I wanted to use them really bad. They're so beautiful. And I ended up using the czech beads here that are twisted and the czech drucks that were in the box. And the only thing I used that was mine was the lever back earring finding and head pins and eye pins. And these turned out great. Now I was going to do wire wrapped loops, but then I realized that the wire wrapping would make these earrings even longer. And since they were just earrings, I just did simple wire loops. And these turned out great. I really loved them. They are 3 inches from the earlobe to the end there, and they're just gorgeous. And I'll pick one up and show you how it lays. It's really nice. There's a lot of movement in it. It's kind of like feathers in a way. I really like them. It's beautiful. And so, if you want to make these, all you have to do is just follow my pattern there. I'll zoom in some. I did the czech drucks on the top. Oh, and by the way, because this earring finding, it's really thick metal, which is nice. Because it was so thick, I had to make big wire loops at the top to go on this, because if I made them small, this would not move. It would be stiff. So I had to make big loops for the top there. And for the rest, I did tiny loops. So they turned out really nice. I love these. And, by the way, because I wanted my loops to be so tiny, I used these pliers that I got a couple weeks ago. They're made by Beadsmith. They're really small. See, they're super tiny pliers. Because they're so small, they have really small tips on them. So this is the round nose, flat nose, and chain nose. And I use those 3 there to make this. And I just love how they turned out. They're so beautiful. So now I'm going to show you something else I made. So this is what I made using beads from the dollar bead box, and I wanted to do a necklace. Remember I told you guys that, but it just was not working out for me. And so I decided to do a wrap bracelet like this, because I've been wanting to do this for a very long time, and I knew it would be hard to make up a pattern, and you know, because the amount of beads I had, it was kind of hard. And so I decided to go with a color blocking thing. So I did this color blocking thingy here, and I used all the beads. I don't have any leftover beads. I used all 7 strands, and it worked out great. And I also got to use my penny button that I've been dying to use. I made this, and I will tell you how I made it. And it's just turned out really awesome, guys. I love it so much. It's really beautiful. And I'm going to give you the list of materials and how I did it. And this took a while for me to make. I worked on it for a couple hours, 3 nights in a row. And so I realized that I would have to do a short piece to show you guys how to make it, because it would just take way too long to go through all of it. And really, it's the same thing I'm doing over and over. It's not hard at all. It takes a while to make, but it is a lot of fun to make. It's very fun to make this. And it's just so awesome. I love it to death. So yeah, I'm going to give you the list of materials. Before I do, I'm going to tell you about my penny button. This is a real penny, guys. So if you want to make a penny button, you can't do it in the house. You have to go into a garage, a shed, whatever, even outside in a driveway, because you're going to have to use a hammer. And you don't want to use a jewelry hammer. You want to use, you know, a hammer that you use for hammering nails into a wall. And you want a hammer that has the ball in the end, a ball peen hammer, because that is going to give us our penny shape. So you will need to go through pennies, okay, and look for certain dates, because copper pennies were made before 1982. So this is a copper penny, and it has 95% copper. The pennies that are made today are made with 97% zinc, and they have a thin copper plating. So you want to find pennies that are made before 1982, because they are 95% copper. This one was made in 1974, and it is aged very gracefully. It's so pretty. So what you're going to want to do is get a ball peen hammer, okay? you want to take a Sharpie marker, a permanent marker, and you want to mark your little dots of where you're going to drill your holes at. And then drill your holes. It's very easy to do this. You don't need a man. I did it all by myself. And I drilled the holes. You can use a drill press or just a regular drill. And then after you drill the holes, and I had an assembly line. I think I made a dozen of these. And believe it or not, it took a while to make these. So I marked all my pennies first, and then I drilled the holes. Okay, and then after I drilled the holes in all of them, I took a block of wood and I put the penny onto a block of wood, and you have to decide which way you want it to be dented. So see, my penny is not flat, and I feel like denting it made it look even better than if it were flat. If you want, you can have, you know, your penny flat, but I just think it looks so much better like this. Now I do have some pennies that I dented on the back side because I wanted to have, you know, the back facing up. So what you're going to do is put the penny onto the block of wood, and with the rounded side of the hammer, the ball peen side, you want to hit that penny with the hammer, and it's going to dome just like this. And you might have to do it a few times to get the right amount of domeness, and you'll end up having a big indentation on your wood block. And when you go to do your next penny, you want to put that penny into that indentation, and I kept using the same spot where I was hitting the penny because it would fit perfectly into the indentation that I made, and I made them domed. It just turned out so cool. Now, I did have an issue with some of the Sharpie marker being left behind. You might be able to clean that up with acetone. I don't know if it would mess up the penny, but I just left mine on. But if you want, you could take it off. So yeah, this is my little Abraham Lincoln penny, and I didn't realize it when I went to drill it. I drilled it, you know, here I didn't want to drill into his head, and now that I have the cord on it, it looks like I have the cord around his neck, like I made a little noose for him. I didn't even realize that until I went to go use him, which is kind of a bummer, but I didn't want to drill through his head. There's nowhere else to drill it. But yeah, I love this penny. It turned out so cool, and it's just the coolest. It is the coolest button, and it only costs a penny to make. Okay, so I'm gonna go through the material list with you guys. Like I said, I used all of the beads. I have no leftovers, and I did this color blocking thing, and I was worried that I was not gonna have enough, but it worked out perfectly. So for the list of materials, you will need to cut 9 feet of leather, and I used 1.5 millimeter leather. I first tried 11 feet because I was worried that I wasn't going to have enough, but I used 11 feet and I had 2 extra feet. So you will need to cut 9 feet of leather, and I use 1.5 millimeter, but you can use a different size if you don't have that size. You're also going to need fireline, and whenever I make wrap bracelets like this, I like to use 10-pound fireline. And I wasn't sure how much I was going to need, and I knew that I was going to have to tie a new thread in because this is really long. So I just started with 8 feet of thread because that's a comfortable length for me. Actually, I can go up to 12 feet and be fine, but I first did 8 feet. And 8 feet got me 2 colors done. So then I tied in another thread, and that got me another 2 colors, and I think I also got a little bit of this turquoise in. And then I did another 8 feet of thread I tied in, and I managed to finish these here because I got a few colors here. I think this is where I started tying it off. It was just perfect. I had the perfect amount of thread. I didn't have too much. There was no waste. It worked out great. So I used 3 pieces of 10-pound fireline, and each piece was 8 foot long, and I had to tie it in when I ran out. And I left an 8-inch tail when I started because that's the amount you will need to tie your tail back on. You can see I have doubled threads. That's where I had to go back and tie my knots. Okay, so for the beads, the first color I did after my penny was the 3mm Czech fire polish green turquoise nebulous luster. That was from the dollar bead bag. And then the second one I did was 4mm Czech fire polish matte warm copper. And this one here, I feel like really, you know, looks great with my button. And this was also from the dollar bead bag. The next one is 4mm Czech fire polished navy nebulous luster. And the next one were these here. I was dying to use these cathedral beads. They are 6mm Czech cathedral cut topaz and white beads. The next one is, oh, and this was from the dollar bead box. This one here was from the dollar bead bag, and it is called 4mm Czech fire polish turquoise brown travertine. The next one is from the dollar bead bag. This one is called 3mm Czech fire polished matte vintage bronze. And the last one is 3x5mm Czech gem cut rondelles, opaque olive green. And I also used a size 10 beading needle. So yeah, this is the material list, and I'll show you guys what it looks like on. First I put the penny over the back like that, and I do my first wrap here, and I start wrapping it down here on my arm because it's coming, you know, towards my wrist. And I love the color blocking, it's really cool. Okay, so there's my 6 wraps, and I just grab the penny like this, my penny button, and put it through the loop, and then I can stick my finger in here and adjust it, and it looks so cool. I think I might want to wear it with a penny on the top because that is so cool. I love my penny button. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make this. I'm going to do a little sample for you guys, okay? Let's do it. I'm going to do just a 1-wrap bracelet, basically just to demonstrate how to do this bracelet for you guys. And remember, if you're doing a really big bracelet like I did for the dollar bead box, you will need to cut 9 feet of leather. Okay, so putting the button on, I'm making sure my ends are even, and I'm bringing the button down to the very center of my cord, and then I'm going to tie a knot. And whenever I tie this knot, I try to make it tidy, and this is impossible to do with thin cording, but you can do it with leather. So I take and hold the cord like this, make it flat and straight, side by side parallel, and then I go like this, and I put the button through this loop, okay, and I pass the cord through it just like that. And if you look, my cord is staying parallel to itself. And you may have to pull one cord more than the other if they're not tying evenly, and pull your knot tight, okay. And I think I do want this to be a little bit looser, so I'll pull my knot this direction, and now it's too loose, and then I'll put that direction, and now it is perfect. So that's how you tie the knot. And now we are ready to do the beading part. So I'm going to try to use my board here. Do you guys remember this? I made this loom board. I have a video telling how I did it, and I will put it down in the description bar. If you don't see it, that's because I forgot it, and just ask me about it, and I'll put the video down there. But I made this board all by myself. Again, I did not need a man to do this. And I take the loop there below the button, the little hole right there, and I take this hook and I just slide this right there onto the hook, okay, just like that. See? And then down here, and by the way, I have a new tripod that I'm using for this. My old one broke, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to film like this. It's going to be too hard. I have to stand up. It's not the staining that's getting to me, it's that I have this arm that's attached to the wall, and I think it's going to be a problem. I don't know how I'm going to do the beading. So I'm just going to tie this down here. And by the way, if you're doing the very long bracelet, you're going to have to ditch this loom, because when I got to my second color, you won't be able to do it on this loom. So what I did is I took these binder clips and I put this onto a shelf that I have in front of me. And I put the button through this hole here. See this here? The button goes right through that hole. Okay, just like that. And I clipped this onto the shelf and I worked on it. And after I did my first color, I had to do it this way and did my second and third, and it just got longer and longer. And after I got like my third color done, I just ditched this clip entirely and I held this bracelet just like this in my left hand, and I did the beading with my right hand, and I had no problem because I already had a lot of it done. It was easy. I really didn't have to attach it to anything. So you guys, you won't be having problems. It's very simple to do. So you can just see there that I tied my cording on there, and now I'm ready to start the bracelet. And I might have to ditch this loom because I don't know if I can film with it, so we'll see how it goes. So now I'm ready to tie on my fireline. Okay, so I got my fireline, and I'm just going to put it under this cord here. I'm going to tie it onto this cord, and I want to leave an 8-inch tail because that was the perfect amount for going back and reinforcing it. And I like to measure my tail because I want it to be exact, because I am that kind of person. Okay, and holding it 8 inches right there. Okay, now I also have to think about how big my beads are. I'm using 4 millimeters, and I don't need it up too close to here because then it's not going to lay right. So I'll have to adjust it, and I'm just going to tie it and I'll adjust the knot. So I'm going to go over and under twice now, making a surgeon's knot. Okay, pull that down, and I'll do it one more time. Over and under, pull it down, then over and under twice. Okay, pull that down. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my beads. Hopefully I can do this on the loom with my tripod. See, I'm using a tripod that's for hunting. You're supposed to screw it into a tree, and there's this long arm that comes off, and you put the camera onto the end of it. Well, that's what I'm using. I have it attached to my wall, and there's this big arm, and I can bump it, see, and it wiggles my camera. So I'm gonna try not to bump it. So I have to come underneath like this, okay, and I'm going to pick up my first bead, slide it down, and let's see, I'm gonna have to adjust this probably. Okay, actually it doesn't look too bad. I'm gonna go ahead and pass through it. I think maybe I got my leather too tight, so I'm gonna take my needle and I'll zoom in. Okay, the bead is going underneath. I've done this before. If you've seen my videos, I've done this kind of bracelet before, but I had multiple rows. I'm going to pass through this bead. I'm going over top of this cord, and my thread is going to catch the cord on the right. Okay, pull that through, just like this. And let's see, do I need to adjust that? I think it might be fine. So if yours is up too high, you just pick at it on the side and you pull that knot down to get it just right. Because if it's up too high, the bead will pop out one of the sides. But I think that I got mine just right, so I'll leave it there. Okay, now I'm going to add another bead, and in order to do that, I have to go underneath my leather. Okay, picking up another bead, sliding it down, bringing it up, holding it in place. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go over this leather, through the bead, and over top of this leather, and then I like to hold the bead in place like this and pull my thread through, because sometimes it comes loose. The bead does. Okay, and then take a look at it. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you might have to fidget with the thread. Like mine looks good right now, but sometimes like the thread will be down here and the bead's like at an angle. So you'll have to take your fingernails, you know, and lift it up on the side and make sure that it's touching the first bead that you put on. But mine looks good, so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get this tail here out of my way. Take the needle again, pass under the leather, pick up a new bead, slide it down, pass through the bead going over the right cord and the cord there in the left, just like that. Hold this in place. I got caught in the corner of my mat there. Okay, and there we go. Looks good. Again, go underneath the two cords, pick up a new bead, slide it on down, put it between these two cords, pass the needle through the bead over top of both of the cords, hold it in place, and then go back underneath the two cords, pick up a new bead, slide that down, put it between the two cords, take the needle, go over top of both of those cords going through the bead, and again hold it in place so your bead does not get loose and it doesn't change how it's sitting. Okay, and that's how it looks. It looks great. I chose these beads for this project because they're an unusual bead. They're the Millefori, I think that's what it's called. And it's kind of hard to put them in a project with other beads. You know, it has to be, you know, similar to this. So I decided, since these beads are so awesome just by themselves, they would be great for a bracelet like this. So that's why I chose these. I was going to do some of the other beads I got from the dollar bead box, but I would like to use those for other projects. So that's why I did these. So that's what it looks like. And my camera's been having a hard time focusing. I guess because it's like 6 years old now. It's been taking a little while to focus. Picking up another bead, sliding it down, going between these two cords, then take the needle, pass over the leather and through the bead, just like that. Okay, it's that simple. So just keep going, doing this weave. It's that easy, and you'll have a really cool bracelet. It's so much fun, guys, making this. I really enjoyed it. Over top of those two cords, hold it in place. When I didn't hold it in place, I found that my beads weren't laying right, so I always like to hold it in place. And that's what I have so far. So I'm going to keep going, and I'll come back. So I'm now at the length that I need to make a single wrap bracelet, and I'm going to show you guys how to do the end here. Now, on this bracelet here, I was using 7 different colors. I started out with 8 feet of thread, okay? And the first one I did, I had 2 colors that I was able to do, okay? And then when I started my second piece of 8-foot thread, I was able to do 2 colors, and I still had some extra thread left. So what I did is I kept going with the third color, weaving the beads in until I had an 8-inch tail left. And then when I had an 8-inch tail, I stopped adding beads, and then I reinforced the end. I went through some beads, and then I started tying knots. So if you're making a big wrap like this, you want to leave an 8-inch tail, because that is the perfect amount that you will need to reinforce the bracelet. So I'm going to show you how to finish this end off here, and I'll also show you how to add a new thread. Okay, so I'm coming out of this bead. I have 1 to pick up, and I did take my bracelet off the loom. Okay, I'm picking up my last bead. I have to make sure that my thread is going under these cords. So just like that. I'm going to hold this in my hand, take the needle, pass through this bead, hold it just like this, and pull the needle through. Okay, adding my last bead. Now, I need to reinforce this because I have to weave back into my work so I can add a new thread, because we're pretending that I only have 8-inch tail left even though I have more. I have to go back through this bead on this side because there's nothing catching onto this cord. Okay, pull that through, and I will do it again. I'm going to go back through the same bead. Back to this bead, over top of the cords. Try not to pierce the cord with your needle. Okay, going back through. And let's see, I'll do it one more time. So I have to flip this over and pass through this side. Actually, I can't do it one more time, can I? Yes, I can. I'll do it. Okay, so now when you look at it, you can see I have several threads there anchoring this bead in place. And what I need to do is I actually need to come back to this side, because do you see this thread here that's at an angle? That thread right there, how it's at an angle? I need to get on top of that thread and follow that same path. So I was wrong. I'm going to have to go through it again. So I'm going to go through it again. Just like that. Try not to pierce the cord. Now if you look at this, I'm on the wrong side. If I were to take my needle and pass this bead, I would be making an X on top of that cord. So to fix that, it's very simple. Just pass the needle through this hole and you'll come out on the other side. Okay, so now you can see that I'm on this side, so just pull that thread just like that, and now when I go to pass with this bead, I will be following that existing thread there. Okay, so I'm not making a new thread path, I'm staying on the same thread path. You always want to do that when tying knots. So now I'm going to take my needle and pass through this bead. Okay, just like that. I'm going to flip this over and I have to go back through the same bead. Hold it in place, pull it through. Okay, now I have this. So now what I do is I hold the bracelet like this, okay? And right here, we're Xing out of this bead here, the second one from the end. This thread right here that's on the third one that's going at an angle, I'm going to catch this thread and tie a half-hitch knot. So just like that, I caught the thread, okay, pull my thread through, and again we're pretending that we have an 8-inch tail. Okay, my tail is much longer, but let's pretend that we have an 8-inch tail. Okay, so I have a loop, so I'm going to pass through the loop like this. One time, two times, and I'm going to slowly bring this knot down, and if it's going to mess up on me, it's actually doing it right now. I just take my needle, pass through the knot, pull it up like that, and then slowly pull my thread in this knot down. Okay, and there it goes. See my knot right there? Now I'm going to pass through this bead, and my knot is going to go into the bead, and you won't see it. See that? It just disappeared. So again, we have to flip this over and now work on this side. I'm going to go through this bead, pull that through. Okay, so now I have to tie a knot here. So I'm holding the bracelet like this. I'm taking my needle, I'm going under that thread that's going there at an angle. Okay, making a loop, and I'll turn this around again. And then I'm going to go through this loop twice. You can make the knot smaller the first time you go through, and then a second time. Okay. And then pull that knot down. Now I want to point out to you guys, I did not tie knots in the first bead because when we have to go to add a thread, I like to start adding a thread through that bead. I don't tie a knot to my cord. I start at the bead. Okay, so I just went through that bead. I'm going to flip it over, go through this bead. Where am I at? Did I go through the right bead? Didn't pull that knot through. Okay. Now I have to go through this bead. Try not to pierce the leather. Oops, I just went through it. Okay. Pull that through. Okay, looks good. So now I'm going to continue doing this weave, tying knots, and I only go about to here, and I trim my thread off. And then after I do that, I'm going to show you how to add a new row of beads, okay? So just keep going, tying your knots, and I'll be back. So I finished tying my knots, and now I'm going to show you how to add a new thread. And to do that, what I did is I went back to where I tied on my first thread. Now my first thread is tied on the left side here, as you can see, of the bracelet, but it's on the back. So what I do is I flip this over. Okay, so now the knot's on this side, and I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go through my last bead. Okay, just like that. Pull the needle through. Okay, so I flipped it over. So now my knot is right there in the left side, and my tail is coming out this side. And what I did is I just took my tail and I measured an 8-inch tail. Okay, went just like this. Found 8 inches, okay, just like that. Left it there. I took my needle and I went back through this bead again, this time on the top. Okay, pull that through, just like that. Now you can see my wraps here that are at an angle. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to leave my tail alone. I will go back later on and tie all those tails back in at the very end. That's what I did. Okay, now so now I'm taking my thread and I'm going under these two cords. I'm picking up my new color, and I'm not actually going to use this color. This is just for demonstration purposes to show you guys how to add a new color. Put it between those two cords, go over top of it, just like that. Hold it in place. And then I'm going to pick up a next bead, so I just put this thread underneath these two cords, just like this. Pick up another bead, let it slide down, it goes between those two, and I pass through it. And I just keep going, and I hold on to it just like this with my hand. And sometimes you will have to go back and make sure that it's you know, straight across like a ladder, because if this is at an angle and you go to add another bead on, the next bead will be at an angle, and so on and so forth. So you have to make sure that they are parallel to each other, the beads are. Okay, so that is how you add your second color, and keep going until you have 8 inches of tail left before you have to add in another thread. And this thread up here, I'm just going to take and put my needle on it, and I can see that my thread is coming out this side, so I have to take my needle and pass through that hole because I need it to come out on the top here. And then when I'm coming out the top on this side, I will follow this same thread path, put it on top of that thread, wrap it around, catch this thread right here by going with my needle in this direction, make a loop, pass through it twice, pull the knot down, then I will go through this bead, and then I will go through that bead, and then I will be here, and I will be at the third bead, and I'll tie a knot there. And that's how you tie your knots. So now I'm going to take this back off and finish tying my knots here in the cord, and show you how to finish this bracelet. So now I'm going to tie my knots here in the leather, and just like I did before with the button, I'm going to go just like this through the loop. I do need to leave a little gap there. I don't want the knot right on top of that bead. Okay, that's nice, just like that. Now I'm going to add another knot, and this one we have to adjust for the button. Okay, so I could slide this down more. Let's see. Right in here. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. So now I just need to make sure that it is very tight, and I have to go get my wire cutters. That's what I use to cut the leather, and I'll cut that off right there, and I'm all done. And this is it. I hope you guys enjoy this. It's so much fun. I really love the copper buttons. You should give them a try. It's not hard to do. You guys can do it. So much fun. This is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like this video, leave me a comment, subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, and like me on Facebook. And don't forget to share pictures of the jewelry we've made from my videos on my Facebook page, and follow me on Pinterest. Thanks for watching.